Hey Techno Studs, in this video we're going to take a look at switch ports. Now switch ports are generally associated with switches, whereas a routed port is generally associated with a router. A switch port doesn't have an IP address, it doesn't do routing on it. What it does is layer 2 switching on a switch port. So let's take a look at some configurations. The first thing that I want to do is just take a look and see what configurations are set up on these interfaces by default. So what I'm going to do is do a show run and take a look at the running config that is on this device. And then I'm going to scroll through it until I get down to the ports. And we see that the ports here are interface fast Ethernet 01. And so it starts at 01. And we scroll through this and it goes all the way to 48. Just note that it doesn't start at 0. It starts at 1 and goes up to 48. Then we have 2 Giga Ethernet ports on here that are 01 and 02. So we have those. And then we have our VLAN interface that's on here, that switched virtual interface. Okay, so next what we're going to do is let's take a look at the show IP interface brief, one of my favorite commands on here, because what it does is it will show us the all of the statuses of the interfaces and just a couple configurations on here. So it shows VLAN 1 here. It shows that there's an IP address and that is up. We can also see that fast Ethernet 01 is up, and fast Ethernet 03 is up, and fast Ethernet 014 is up. So we see several devices are actually plugged into this switch, and there is a line protocol up, which means that things are actually communicating on this network, on those ports, those specific ports. We can scroll down and we can see all the 48 fast Ethernet and the last 2 Gig Ethernet bases. All right. So how do we configure this? Let's get into configuring these different ports. So what I need to do is I need to get into the interface. To do that, I'll get into the global configuration mode. And from the global configuration mode, I just type in interface and the interface that I want to get into, such as fast Ethernet 0/14 might be one of those that I want to get into and configure. I can hit enter and then I get into that interface and I configure that. The other thing I could do is I could maybe want to configure all of these different ports at the same time. To do that, I can do interface and then range. Stick the range command in there, and then I can still type in fast Ethernet and then 01 through, and then whatever range that I want. So in this case right here, maybe I'm making all of the first 44 ports access ports. And so we'll talk about access ports later on, but so we're going to go to 44, hit enter, and now I'm configuring the range. And maybe what I want to do is I want to put a description on there. And I'm just going to put on there access ports, or whatever description that I want to put in here. So this is, I'm just going to call it access ports. And now if I do show run and take a look at the running config and scroll down, I can actually see that there's a description put on each one of these ports. And I can see that it's on all of these ports up to port 44. And then there's no longer a description on the rest of them. So what I'm going to do is I can exit out of here and I want to get into the fast Ethernet 014. Or I can just jump straight through to it. So I'm going to say interface and interface. Actually, I just can type in INT because it will autocomplete the rest or assume the rest. And then I want FA 014. So I don't need to type in the full fast Ethernet out there. So now I'm just in that interface. So I don't actually need to exit out and then get into the interface. I can go jump straight to this interface. And now let's say I want a description here. And this is my, let's put access port. And this is for the demo laptop. And now I have a different description on that. There are several other commands that we can do with this. We can also do duplex and change the duplex of it. We can do auto, full, or half. The default is auto, and that's really what we want. It's going to be rare that we want to change that. It's the only time I've seen where we really have changed this is when it's working with some older piece of equipment and you need to configure something specific for that older piece of equipment. So another thing is the speed. You can change the speed. We're in the same boat with this one in that the default is auto, and we really don't want to change it for the most part. The only time we'd want to change it is for some specific use. And then the other thing that we could have on here is MDIX, and we can turn the MDIX off or on. And so the MDIX senses whether it's plugged into another switch or another computer, and then auto adjusts that port so it can communicate to that. So we want it on auto, that's the default, so we don't need to actually set that. The other thing that I can do with this is I can actually shut down the port. So I can say no shutdown. And well, this is actually brings the switch port back up. So let's do a shutdown on it, and then do show IP interface brief. We can see that it's changed the state to it. That's the message that's come up here. So let's hit enter. And when we get to 014, that interface is now down. So we're also going to do show run interface FA014. Take a look at it, and it has the shutdown command on the running config for this interface. So there you have it. So there we can see this interface has the description on it that we put on there. It has the shutdown command on there. Let's go ahead and bring that back up by typing in no shut, and then it brings up that interface again. Of course, once I do any of this, I'd want to save my configurations, and then there you have it. The port has changed its state back to up. We're good to go, and that's how you configure a switch port interface.